Welcome back to the Jackson Neill Sports Podcast here on Monday, February 11th, 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, this is on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, all those great places wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can find this one, in addition to Anything Goes with Jackson Neill and Jackson Neill Music Podcast in those same feeds. Today, we'll talk a little bit about the Alliance of American Football. It kicked off this weekend. I want to touch on its week one and what I'm just thinking about that league. Then I also want to talk about the NFL a little bit. Two really big storylines coming out of the National Football League today, so a lot to get to here on today's show. And starting off in the AAF, as it's called, there were the 4 opening weekend games for the Alliance of American Football. In those games, teams such as the Orlando Apollos, Memphis Express, Birmingham Iron, Arizona Hotshots, just some really cool, crazy out there names. Everything happened, and it was just the start of a brand new football league that has a lot of changes when it's compared to its NFL counterpart. First of all, obviously starting off here as a spring league, it starts right now 1 week after the Super Bowl. So if you were missing football at all, you got right back into it with this league. And I wasn't able to watch a ton of the games this weekend, but I was able to watch a little bit of some. And already after 1 week, between seeing what people were saying, between seeing some of the stats for the viewership numbers, between seeing how the games played out, I really am starting to think, I'm starting to have a couple big opinions about this league, and a couple big things I want to put out there about it, because it's very interesting what this league will be like. It's very interesting how it's already operating, and I have some thoughts on it, and some thoughts on how it could improve, and things that it's doing very, very well. I kind of want to start with the rule changes, where the play clock is 35 seconds, 5 seconds shorter than the NFL. There are no TV timeouts. There are no kickoffs. The teams just start from their own 25-yard line. And there's no extra points. Teams will have to go for a 2-point conversion. These are some of them. Also, instead of onside kicks, team will have a 4th and 12 from their own 28-yard line. So a lot of different things happening right here for the AAF, for this football league in general, because it's certainly a lot different when you watch these games, and I think these rule changes have big impacts. In terms of the rule changes, I think they got a lot of them. I'm really excited to see how a lot of these play out throughout the season. We didn't really see that onside kick rule come in. That's what I'm really looking out for. I want to see how that plays out in more high-pressure games, in games maybe in the playoffs, in the championship, or leading up to the playoffs for seeding, getting in. I want to see how that plays out, and just how much it changes up the game, because almost nowadays, especially with this new rule with the NFL instituted where you cannot run prior to the kickoff, there's no way that you can possibly recover an onside kick these days in football. It's practically impossible in the NFL. So with that in mind, whenever you need to kind of get, whenever you're down by 2 possessions in, let's say 2 minutes, even if you're able to get a quick touchdown or a quick field goal or whatever you need, you still don't have a good shot at getting the ball back. And this drastically changes that. Now, since we haven't seen it instituted, I'm not sure, but I'd imagine that whenever you don't convert from, the team gets it at that spot. So if it's from your own 28-yard line, they have the ball pretty deep in your end of the field. I'm not sure if there's a set like at the 50 or whatever, but if it works that way, then it's a lot more risky than an onside kick, but I think it's a lot more probable than one as well. It just adds a lot more drama to the end of games, and I think it gives teams more of a chance as well. And it makes more games come down to one single play, which is always so fun to watch. Then a couple other things. The game definitely did move fast. I mean, last night watching the Arizona Hotshots and the Salt Lake Stallions play, those no television timeouts, there are still cutaways, like similar to how the NFL has been using that kind of double box with an ad. The AAF is doing the same thing. So, in between possessions, they'll cut away. The difference, though, is rather than 3 or 4 minutes of ads, there's just one ad that plays, usually probably around the 45-second or maybe a minute mark if I had to put my thumb on it. So they'll get an ad in there, but you never stop seeing the field. You never stop seeing the action. You never feel like you're disconnected from the game, which is a really, really cool kind of experience. It was very, very similar to soccer, with the fact that it was just this constant barrage of, even when there's a commercial playing, I could still see in the top left they're going for different camera angles showing the quarterbacks or the teams on the sidelines. So you never were really that detached from the game throughout either half, which is just wild. A lot different and a lot more engaging, I would say. Football is one of those sports that you like to kind of click around or flip around channels or whatever, watch the different games, maybe even be doing something on. If there's not two teams you really care about, be doing something and have it on in the background. With the AAF, it grabs your attention a lot more with those no TV timeouts. I think that's definitely an excellent one. Now, in terms of the no extra point attempts and also the no kickoffs, it's those two ones I'm a little more polarized by. I think that the no kickoffs, I understand what they're trying to do. A part of me does. You might think like kickoffs is such a high contact part of the game. It's where a lot of concussions happen. So maybe it's for something along the lines for player safety. Then again, one of the biggest highlights to come out of the AAF was a sacking of the quarterback where the quarterback's helmet flew right off of him. So, and that was kind of applauded. That in our league, that's not a penalty. So I don't know if player safety is definitely at the top of any one of the AAF's list, so I don't understand. So in terms of kickoffs, it felt weird. It didn't feel right with each team starting at the 25-yard line. I saw a point being made up also on sports networks today about how so many players rely on special teams, and a kickoff's a huge part of that. Nothing's crazier than a kickoff return for a touchdown. And yes, I know it's not really that. Most of the times it ends up being at the 20 or 25-yard line. A lot of times now the kickers have such strong legs, just a touchback. But I don't think the kickoffs are. I never thought kickoffs were a problem. The only thing I disliked about kickoffs have ever disliked about kickoffs is when the NFL is notorious for this. You just have a couple-minute commercial break. You come back, show a touchback kickoff, and you go right back to commercial for a couple minutes. Those were the only times I really didn't like kickoffs, because you're not giving me really any football between you just go between commercial and commercial break. But with the AAF, obviously, with a kickoff, they're not going to go to TV timeouts because they don't have any. So that was just an excellent. So that's a point that I think I understand what they're trying to do, but also I would rather have kickoffs than not have them. In terms of the extra points, it's interesting. I don't have as much of a clear opinion on no extra points as of right now. That's something I have to see play out throughout the rest of the season. What's kind of interesting are the scores we're getting, because you'll see it's just like a 15-6 score of scoring 26 points or 38 or 22 or 6. It's just different. It's just a different amount of points, basically, and it's just not that usual like 27-17 or the 20-14 scores we're used to. So I think it's a little bit of an adjustment period, but I kind of like how it plays out with not being without just having the meaningless extra point at the end. I mean, now extra points are more important than ever, almost because kickers keep on missing it. But I think it's a really interesting kind of way they have it. They have it going on with the whole extra no extra point. So I want to see more of that before I give my definitive take on there. Other than that, there's a couple other things I want to touch on from this opening weekend. I want to go back to that hit on the quarterback where it just blew his helmet off. I understand what they're trying to do by saying we have a league where that's not a penalty, and as a fan, a part of you does miss that. I think the NFL is a little too strict with roughing the passers. I get that they're trying to protect the quarterbacks, and I want them to do that because that's when the game is the most interesting. But I don't think there should be roughing the passer calls on sacks when they just fall on top of them. I think that's a part I disagree with, but I understand when they try to protect the quarterbacks, because think about how we had a pretty good playoffs, and that was because we had, besides the Super Bowl, that's because we had quarterbacks healthy. There was Mahomes, there was Goff, there was Breeze, there was Brady. These guys were staying healthy. These guys were staying on the field, and honestly, with the NFL in the past several years, it's been half the battle, is quarterbacks like that, like, Rodgers or whatever, they're just constantly not on the field. So keeping them on there has been imperative, and I think the NFL's done a solid job at that. I think maybe gone a little too safe, but it's keeping star players on there. And for the AAF, you like seeing those rough plays because, you're a football fan, it's a controlled violence, but I'm sorry, that hit looks a lot different 10 years ago. Watching that hit in 2009 is a lot different than seeing that hit in 2019. We just know a lot more, whether it's about concussions, whether it's all those things. I don't know if you can play football like that anymore, and I don't know if you should. I don't know if that's right. So that hit really kind of polarized me, where it's like, it's nice to see the aggression back in football, but geez, that was a big problem for the NFL. Look how between the lawsuits, between just the damage it did to players, how awful that was. So for the AAF, not sure if that's the calling card to your league. I don't know if that's the right route to go. Other than that, another point I want to touch on is just the overall presentation of it. And I will say, between when the games are and the networks they are on. Looking at these games, they split them over. It looks like if you look down the schedule, they split with 2 games on Saturday and 2 games on Sunday. So similar to how we had in college football, and football season, we had college football on Saturdays, NFL on Sundays. Honestly, at first usually Saturday nights are not a great night for sports, but college football's always had a nice little niche on Saturday nights, and I think for the first season, it's a good idea for them to have it both on Saturday and Sunday, because this is uncharted territory. We don't really know what sells better for football in the spring, Saturday or Sundays. My guess is Sundays. I am a fan of, to me, an 8 o'clock game on Sunday is a lot more watchable than an 8 o'clock game on Saturday. And I think this might become something for the AAF where they might want to look for down the road. Can they, move games for towards Sunday? But you could honestly do something along the lines of having a noon game on Saturday and a 4 o'clock game on Saturday, and just get it done by Saturday night, because so many people don't watch TV Saturday night, and you'd still be fine. I just think that Saturday night's usually a tough time. College football's found its own little way to succeed in that market. I don't know if other things will be able to succeed as well, but I like how they're testing the waters out and finding what will work, because I could be wrong on that, and it's hard to predict what exactly will do the best. Other than that, I'm getting worried as I look down the schedule for what networks these will be appearing on. It looks like each week there's going to be 2 NFL Network games, 1 CBS Sports Network game, and 1 streamed on Bleacher Report Live. Next week there's going to be a TNT game instead of BR Live. I just get worried that we've already seen the biggest appeal for the AAF because there was those 2 CBS games. Now, I know there's not going to be that CBS would not air, their first year football, they would not air it all the time. I get that. However, CBS Sports Network just is one of those sports networks that just does not have far-reaching appeal, I guess you would say. It doesn't have a lot of places don't have that as part of their cable package. NFL Network's a little more accessible. TNT's definitely more accessible. But I don't know about CBS Sports Network. That to me seems just like one of those sports networks that's hard for people to find, usually on their TVs. I think something like an NBC Sports Network partnership would have been a lot better. But at least it's being nationally televised. And in terms of the Bleacher Report live streaming, again, I've heard of people using that platform. I've never tried it myself. I think it would have been a lot smarter of an idea for them to go a route such as ESPN Plus or some ESPN streaming or something along those lines. I don't know if that offer was on the table. But if I were the commissioner of the league, I would have much rather gone for that kind of avenue. But it might have been something along the lines of ESPN Plus would only do it if they'd put all the games on there. And if you're going to have one streaming game, I'd much rather have one streaming game a week and 3 nationally televised than the other way around. So overall from the AAF, it looks like to be a very, very promising league and something that I'm going to enjoy watching for the rest of this 10 weeks, for the rest of the 9 weeks, as it plays out and see which teams come on top. I mean, after all, honestly, like, have you seen these uniforms? Have you seen these, like, kind of logos? I think, personally, I think it's just fun. I feel like if you're going to have a brand new football league with no, tie-ins or anything, I think they picked some really good markets. The San Antonio game looked like it was pretty crowded. San Diego, they need a football team. They just lost the Chargers. Orlando, they have the Magic, but I could see them supporting a football team. Not too sure about Atlanta and Arizona, considering they both have football teams already. But we'll see how that goes. Salt Lake has always seems like a cool sports town. So it's found Memphis as well. Seems like it's found these kind of cool sports towns who don't have NFL teams in some of these markets that might work. And putting something in Birmingham, I respect them for that. I think that's a really cool team from the standpoint that football's huge down there in Alabama. Now, there really is no city big enough to field an NFL team, but if football's that big, just don't compete with college football, and I think you'd be set. So I think the Birmingham placement of a team could become interesting. I really want to see what the attendance is. I really want to see these TV numbers. I mean, first weekend, it beat out the NBA, but according to some people with its ratings, which is just huge, getting about a 2.1. That's ridiculous. Nobody expected that. I didn't even expect a 1. So to get a 2.1 was just astronomical numbers for the AAF right there. And, the first night, it was trending all over Twitter. Now, I think it had a lot of appeal because it was on CBS that first time. But now it's becoming more known. I think it will start to catch on. I think we saw the biggest week for it, but I think it will maybe develop into something. And I really want to see if this can possibly become a developmental league for the NFL because I miss football. I really miss football. And it'd be nice to have another league going on in the spring. And honestly, why can't that be the AAF? So I want to transition now over to the NFL, just for a quick second, just a couple minutes. I don't want to go too long in there. I just spent a lot of time on the AAF. But the NFL, there's just 2 storylines that happened today that I just feel like I need to touch on. Number 1, Kyler Murray decides to go with football. My immediate reaction to this is just an overwhelming, huge loss for baseball. He is a young star athlete, and he just chose football directly over baseball. Now, I understand that football is offering him possibly a lot more money right now, but still, if you're the MLB, this one's got to hurt. A bright young star like that's what you want in your sport, especially for Major League Baseball. They are lacking those. So to miss out on him, that's big for them. That's a big, big loss for the MLB. I think that's the biggest takeaway I have from that whole ordeal. I wish the best for Kyler Murray. I don't know about his NFL prospects. You're that short. It's honestly tough to see over the line as an NFL quarterback. You look at any short quarterback, they always have that kind of one trait that just allows them to succeed. Drew Brees, he's kind of short, but no one's as accurate as Drew Brees in the NFL history. Russell Wilson, he's short, but his mobility to just get away from defenders, not just scrambling, but even in the pocket to get out of bounds before getting hit, run around a little bit and get rid of the ball. Kind of Fran Tarkenton-esque, that ability by Russell Wilson, that's what sets him apart. I know Kyler Murray does a lot of things well. I know he's a great player and all. I don't see one thing that separates him from everyone else. And I get worried because you're that small. He did move around a lot in college. That's not going to last in the NFL whatsoever. It lasts against Big 12 defenses, but not the NFC East, not the AFC South, not any division in the NFL. So that's my thought on Kyler Murray. I'll probably do another podcast on him, maybe leading up to the NFL draft or so, but that's just my immediate reaction. And my other reaction I want to give quick is Kareem Hunt signing with the Cleveland Browns. A tough, I tweeted this out, and this is kind of how I believe, is that Kareem Hunt is a young super talented running back in the National Football League. Of course he was going to get a second chance. As of if he should, that's a completely different question. You just hope that the Browns will put him in a position where he can, hopefully he's taken the steps to try and learn from his, terrible mistake. You hope the Browns have the organization there to kind of put him in the right direction, to kind of help him out as much as possible. Browns have been a dysfunctional franchise for the past 2 decades or so. Recently, it looks like it's starting to turn around. I hope that being part of this kind of team will be the right thing for him. He's obviously going to face a very, very long suspension. I think, purely football-wise, he's going to help the Cleveland Browns out. He's a good running back. I just hope that GM John Dorsey, I hope everyone over there in Cleveland is going to, help him learn from his mistakes the best way possible. And with that, that'll wrap it up for this edition of the Jackson Neill Music Podcast. My throat almost hurts a little bit. I'm a little under the weather, just at a 20-some minute podcast, so hopefully my throats will be feeling well the rest of tonight and tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you like to listen to these at, whether that's SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, wherever basically you can find this, as well as the Jackson Neill Music and the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. On the Jackson Neill Music Podcast, I discuss the latest happenings in music, all genres, with some music writers as well. On Anything Goes with Jackson Neill, I interview musicians and some other people too. I've had a comedian on there, just kind of whatever. Anything goes, exactly. Just an interview podcast that I do. Have some really, really cool ones coming up with some really cool artists. So stay tuned for that. Also, down in the description, check out there my Twitter and Instagram at JacksonNeill20. There you can catch extra photos, videos, links, everything, all that bonus content, all that great stuff. So follow me on those platforms as well. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you all next time.